Hello, it is great to see you again. Now, sit back, relax, enjoy another half hour of Hatteberg's People.
And here's what's coming up.
It's always a little tough for me to sit here on the front porch because this was the last place that a lot of times the boys that were going off to war would be sitting.
It was the end of an era and a chance for Larry Salmon to say goodbye to an important family and community institution. You'll learn what made his little cafe so special and see what's become of it now. Plus,
every day is fulfilling. No matter how little or how much you get done, it's you did something every day.
Gene Copeland of McPherson found a way to keep busy during his retirement by opening his own history museum. See how these down-home exhibits taught younger generations to appreciate the past as well as the present. Also,
science starts with what we can see. Science shouldn't be all that difficult.
this retired teacher in St. John's also opened his own museum. James Hood's mission was to make a science understandable and fun. You'll learn his story coming up. And
the only car I'll ever have is a Model T. I don't trust a car I can't crank up.
Ever miss the good old days? Then try living like John Seifert. He lived like it was 1920 every day. You'll see how it worked out for him. Hello, I'm Susan Peter.
And I'm Larry Hatteberg. Those are just some of the stories we'll show you this week. Let's get started. These stories are like old friends. Their lives radiate from the screen like prophets of the past. They were teachers, but not in a classroom. Instead, they taught about life to those around them who cared to listen, and I was their student.
World War II was one of the pivotal events in human history. And no matter what they were doing during that period, people who lived through it were changed or influenced in some profound ways.
A case in point, Larry Salmons, who was just a child at the time.
Dateline, Washington, D.C., September 16, 1940. Once they were proven fit, the transformation to fighting recruit came in a big hurry.
When World War II began, it was little places like this in Hanston, Kansas, where young men gathered to wait for the train that took them off to war.
Many times over the years, this place has flooded back in my memory, and I don't cry, I just enjoy it.
This old restaurant is full of memories for Larry Salmons.
This was my childhood area, and as I look around it, I had never really had a chance as things got faster and faster in the life that I lived. I'd never really had a chance to come back and look at it and to say goodbye to it.
He grew up around these walls. His grandmother, Effie Clifton, ran this restaurant in the 30s and 40s.
And those are precious moments in our lives. And to look at the old building as it was, without giving it a proper last goodbye was just not something I could do.
The restaurant closed in the 40s and time took its toll. This is what it looked like before Larry and Marilyn Salmons decided to restore it.
For 25 years, this was an eyesore that I wished would go away.
I just started one day and taking one board off at a time, and it looked like an insurmountable job.
Most of the boys that left from here.
Locals like Richard Doc White remember the heyday of this cafe. His name is even one of the few left on the back of an ancient booth, put there in the 30s.
Kids don't understand that we were once kids. I think that they need to realize that old people were once young.
But in World War II, it was outside the old cafe where patriotism and reality became one.
It's always a little tough for me to sit here on the front porch because this was the last place that a lot of times the boys that were going off to war would be sitting, and we'd listen and the train would whistle, and then my grandmother and I and whoever was going off to war, we'd get up and we'd start down this road out here, and we'd walk down the road to the depot, and we'd all be crying, and she would be holding them and hugging them and kissing them goodbye, and it greatly impressed me. Sometimes the tough things in life are the things when we learn the most.
Larry was a state senator at that time of that interview. Now, he passed away in 2022 at age 84.
Here's what the old cafe looks like now, closed and seemingly abandoned. You'd have no idea about the great history of this place by looking at it today, and that is unfortunate.
It is unfortunate, but time passes everything by and every person by. So
I don't like that.
We have to expect it.
Don't say that anymore. I do not like that. I do not like that
Most
time
people
passing
don't.
by.
You want everything to stay the same.
Well, in Hatteberg's people, it does.
In Hatteberg's people,
Right?
it does. Thank
Okay.
you.
Remembering the past is one thing, living it is another.
Yeah, John Seifert of Wichita took living in the past as seriously as anybody could. In 1985, a visit to his house was a trip back in time.
The seconds keep ticking away in John Seifert's apartment. But is it time going forward or backward?
It would be nice to go back to the 20s. I would certainly be the first person in line.
Almost everything in his apartment is from that period, even the newspaper he reads. Now, he's not a fanatic. He just enjoys that decade in history.
They were just an interesting period. They weren't any better than the 80s, any worse, really. I think they were just a comfortable period for me.
John works at the Wichita Historical Museum, so his career and his own personal interest in history have merged. His apartment is a museum in itself.
Those are reproduction 1920 carbon filament zigzag. They have allowed me to run my electric bill down to about $2.50 a month.
And now a message from our sponsor. Ladies and gentlemen, does your taste different?
It's a 1926 Atwater Kent radio, and I've managed to pick up as far as Paris on a good day. Of course, you have to run an aerial outside. People my age can't understand why I want to do it. You know, well, where's your stereo, where's your TV, all this such stuff. I would have that stuff. I don't really miss it. Most of the time people just kind of give me a wide leeway. You know, don't get too close to him now. He thinks it's 1924, which, you know, everybody knows it's, you know, 1925.
And what 1920 buff would be complete without a Model T? A crank, and a finicky transmission.
The only car I'll ever have is a Model T. I don't trust a car I can't crank up. I'm comfortable being half crazy, I guess. 60 years out of date, but I don't hurt anybody with it, so I'm not worried about it.
John is now retired, but he says really not much else has changed. He even still drives that Model T. Going into his apartment when I shot that story, everything in the apartment was from the 20s. The radio, the lamps, it was really a museum of living.
I love it.
Yeah, he was great. Yeah.
Can't you just feel all the anxiousness draining from your body when you went into his apartment?
You could.
He lives life the right way.
That's right, and it was like you were living and entering into another world.
A simpler world.
A very simple world at that time.
At that time.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. Well, no doubt Kansans liked the good old days, and for the man in this next story, that meant doing things the hard way. At least you'd think.
Yeah, modern farm machinery was of no interest to Howard Johnston. Take a look.
I just figure I go through this life one time and I go as I see fit.
Some farmers plant corn, wheat, or milo. Howard Johnston is different. Johnston sows memories. Memories of a simpler time when horsepower was fed by oats and grass.
There was a little feeling towards horse farmers here a few years ago. They thought they were kind of dumb, but we're getting a good price for these horses and we're getting the job done. And we're not running to the bank and got that worried look on our face all the time like the tractor farmers, so it's changed the attitude of some people.
Johnston farms 240 acres in northeast Kansas using only the Belgian draft horses. For him, it's a way of life, a throwback to a simpler time.
Horse talk. Yeah, it's a good life. Somebody asked me one time, says, "What, do you have any problems with this way of doing it?" I said, "No, if I did, I wouldn't do it." Come on out here. Come on, Lala. Come out here. I might give you something to eat. I had a friend visiting here a couple of days ago, and we come out, stayed overnight. We come out in the morning, and I told him, I said, well, if you had the choice, I said, of rolling over in the morning and facing Farrah Fawcett or coming out here and greeting all these horses, I said, take the horses, I said.
His way of life masquerades the fact that he's a sharp businessman. This is one Kansas farm that makes money. Johnston sells many of his draft horses, some going for more than $2,500. And he saves money by buying horse-drawn implements.
We gave $5 for that manure spreader. Billy, get in there. Right there. Billy, get in there. Get up in there, Billy.
This is what farming is all about for Howard Johnston. The horses, the earth, the sky, and the sounds of an earlier day.
Get up, boys. Right there. I'm just able to get along. I just don't have the bankers and the machinery companies breathing down my neck all the time, and that's worth a lot. Like I say, I don't make a lot of money, but I don't spend a lot of money.
Howard Johnston, a refreshing maverick among farmers. I'm Larry Hatteberg.
Well, Howard died in 1997 at age 74, but he lived life the way he wanted to live it. None of that mechanical machinery for him, the tractors and all that stuff. He just liked working with the horses.
The horses.
You know, and he did that every day. And you'd go by his farm and see him out there working, and you kind of want to see that again.
I would love to see it again.
Yeah.
Thank goodness you preserved it for us.
He is there for all time.
In St. John, Kansas, James Hood could tell you more about science in 5 minutes than you've learned in 5 years.
Yeah, he was a Teacher of the Year and inducted into the Teachers Hall of Fame, but his students and the town will remember him for what he's taught and the lasting legacy he left behind.
Now, Hutchinson has its Cosmosphere, Wichita has its Exploratorium, St. John's got its little St. John Science Museum.
That little museum is in St. John, Kansas, right across from the town square. You'll see it where the workmen are doing a street improvement. It's called Hood's Haven.
Because I love this kind of stuff. This is my hobby. The fact is, you might say my hobby is making something, demonstrations out of a piece of discarded equipment.
Hood is a retired science teacher who just can't stop.
Now, science starts with what we can see. Science shouldn't be all that difficult.
He's taken this building, filled it with hands-on scientific demonstrations, given the town a place to get coffee, and given him a reason to go on.
And as it moves past that wire, notice how it influences the flow of that plate current.
Sometimes he jokingly refers to himself as the mad scientist of St. John. He's built all these experiments and loves to show them off.
Later they modified this into your microwave. This is what cooks your food.
While he gives tours, town folks watch, drink coffee, and discuss the latest events. They've all had the tour before.
Especially a lot of the elderly, can come in and drink coffee and socialize without having to spend a lot of money.
On the wall, pictures of war heroes from St. John. Hood was a World War II flight engineer on a B-24 bomber. That experience, he says, taught him how science was part of everyday life and that materials discarded by one person could be important to another. All his experiments are made from discarded junk.
Like these students today, I was in the height of my glory showing them how this worked. I just love that kind of stuff. I suppose maybe I'm a born teacher, I don't know.
Hood has hundreds of former students, all who believe this man set the standard for teaching science.
This keeps me active mentally. That's one of the reasons I'll do it.
It's possible these teens may not yet understand the passion of learning.
This Tesla guy discovered a motor that would run without brushes using alternating current.
James Hood has it.
This is one we didn't build.
And we're all fortunate he shares it.
This is the original telegraph. This is the Marconi thing.
Now, before becoming a teacher, James was the only survivor of a B-24 bomber that was shot down over the North Sea in World War II.
Now, he passed away in 2020 at age 98, but the St. John's Science Museum he founded remains a centerpiece of that city's downtown. You never really know about people until you look into their history about his service in World War II. But he continued that service to the community and to the people there.
I just love, he didn't brag about his service and that he was a hero in World War II. He just wanted to contribute to the community, and his legacy lives on in that museum.
Like so many, he was a quiet hero.
Absolutely. Right. Well, this next story is also about a World War II veteran who also opens his own museum.
Yeah, his name is Gene Copeland, and during his lifetime he collected all sorts of interesting things.
Come on in here, Jake.
Get your picture taken. Better comb my hair then.
In a brand new building just off McPherson's downtown, Gene Copeland is exactly where he wants to be.
Develop this whole area here as a museum. Come in, drop a cup of coffee. Just made a new patch.
Among friends.
Sit over here. Sit over here, Jake.
And surrounded by thousands of items he's collected over his years as a McPherson businessman.
And people bring stuff and give it to me, and I clean it up and put it on display. That's a sediment bowl off of a Case tractor of about the 1920s, but this was in the toolbox.
He began collecting in '64, and through the years, never stopped.
Walking upstairs gonna make me lose my pants.
Now, in his retirement, he's created a second museum in McPherson.
This is Dr. Robert Solberg. He delivered 4 of my children.
So now he has an early day doctor's office.
Every day is fulfilling. No matter how little or how much you get done, it's you did something every day, 7 days a week. It's just fun. It's just fun. I hate to see all the old stuff thrown away and the kids don't even know what it's used for. Just old rusty iron and scrub on it, brush on it, and coat it with a little WD-40 and put it on display for people to look at. Like a 7-function wrench. I think this is 7 functions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
It is exactly that. This is one of those places that is just perfect for Gene Copeland.
It's certainly not boring.
Outside, he's working on more displays in some old buildings. And inside are his friends.
We have a peanut warmer over there, and we warm the peanuts and drink coffee. Art here is retired from Halliburton. John's retired from Certainty, and talk about that a little bit. Old times. Codgers our age is supposed to be sitting around whittling, but none of us whittle.
Gene doesn't, because he's just too busy cataloging stuff. He spends so much time here, he's even got a place to sleep and a kitchen.
This is where I fix my lunch every day.
Gene's world may be the past, but he's living in the present to preserve it.
It's just like a second home to me. I just spend my daylight hours down here fooling around with it.
Now, Gene has since closed down his museum and auctioned everything off. The auction attracted collectors from all across the country, and he recently celebrated his 96th birthday at the retirement community where he now lives. His daughter, Beth, still twice a week, he visits his old homestead where he lived and operated the museum. The museum was something that he wanted to do, perhaps not all his life, but he wanted to do for the community. And he did it, and he accomplished everything. And then when it was time to go,
It was time
Sold
to
it
go,
all
and he
off.
sold it all. So it's probably still sitting as points of attention in people's homes or in other museums,
Yes.
probably.
Yes.
So-
It's all gone and having a nice home somewhere else.
Exactly. Well, the beauty of planet Earth is often imitated in art of all kinds, but there's nothing like experiencing the real thing.
Yeah, being surrounded by the vast expanse of the Kansas Flint Hills has been compared to a spiritual experience. That was certainly the case for Milt and Laura Hittenbach, as you'll see in this story from way back in 1984.
You know, it's days like this that most of us are glad that we have a job that we can work inside, maybe in an office or in a plant. But you know, there are some ranchers who have to work outside in this all the time, and it's no big deal for them. Some of them live in the Flint Hills, and despite the fog and the rain, there is still some beauty left.
Well, I think it's the best place in the world to be. Means a lot to just be out here and there's no noise or anything that way. It's just to be free and be out in the fresh air and everything.
Milt and Laura Hittenbach of Cedar Point don't mind the changing seasons when the Flint Hills go from green to brown. They are constant spectators to the beauty of an ever-changing prairie, even on days like these when the clouds hang low and the fog hugs the rolling landscape. They ride in the loneliness and yet the stark beauty that few understand.
Yeah, I like it. I wouldn't want to trade for anything else.
Milt Hittenbach is well known in Chase County. In the 30s and 40s, he was a trick roper and rider and a leading draft horse breeder. Now he's a rancher who's best known for breaking horses. He and his wife Laura share a love, not only for each other, but for the land they call the prairie.
I think this is what God's country is all about, the hills and nature and this kind of stuff. This is one of my favorite places to look around because from this particular point on a good clear day you can see the Florence elevator. That's about 10 miles.
Some people look at a day like this and only see clouds and a chill. The Hittenbachs are different. They can watch as the sun caresses the prairie with a kiss. So before you write off a gloomy day like this one, try to see it as the people of the Flint Hills do. It is not a day to be forgotten, but a gift to be remembered. From Cedar Point, Kansas, this is Larry Hatteberg.
Well, that was almost 40 years ago. Milt and Laura are obviously no longer with us, but their legacy of what they enjoyed and what they believed in is not so different than a lot of other Kansans.
Yeah.
I love going out into the Flint Hills, and when you went out with them and when I went out with them, they taught you about the beauty of the hills and why it was important to them.
Well, that must have lasted a long time with you because I know you
Yes,
go to the Flint Hills and take the most amazing pictures.
You're very kind.
And
it's
and
a great place.
Oh.
It's one of Kansas treasures.
It really is.
That even Kansans aren't aware of, really.
Right.
You know.
Okay, and where can we see those pictures?
You can see those pictures in my home.
But don't you have a website?
Line up on the front porch.
Okay.
And then go in, and it'll be great.
All right, trust me, they're beautiful,
Okay.
ladies and gentlemen, and they take you to the Flint Hills and they take you to nature. And
Yeah,
I love
and the
them.
people who taught me about the Flint Hills
Were
were the
those.
two people you just saw.
Okay.
All right.
Well, that's all the stories we have for this week.
And if you have a question or comment, please drop us a line at hattebergspeople@kpts.org. Always fun to hear from you.
And Larry, it's always fun for all of us to see all these old stories. We go back in time and it's a time for us to just relax and go, they're treasured pieces of Kansas history that would otherwise be lost and forgotten in most cases, and now they're not.
Well, you get an education from these people.
You sure
learn
do.
about life and what's
Exactly.
really important.
Exactly.
All right, well, we appreciate everyone who watches, and we look forward to seeing you all again very soon. Take care, everybody.